Hello, everyone. I'm Lee Bodette and welcoming you to Test Drive. It's our first podcast. Looking forward to it. Pretty excited about it. Just give you a brief introduction as to who I am. I'm the host of Test Drive. It's on the YouTube channel. We just started that about a year ago, so hopefully you can tune into YouTube and check out some of our Test Drive episodes. I've been in radio for over 40 years as a broadcaster, hosted a Sunday morning radio flea market show for 33 years, and still do it once in a while. It's one of those deals where you call in the show and you buy, sell, swap, or trade pretty much anything, cars, antiques, that kind of thing. And I've been a car enthusiast my entire life. I mean, ever since I was a kid, I just love vehicles. Started off with Matchbox and then Hot Wheels, and it just kind of grew from there. Then I started buying some cars. I've probably owned well over 100 vehicles in my lifetime. I think I got the bug from my dad. Even though my dad didn't have a lot of new cars when I was growing up, he was a father of 5 children, and my mother, of course. And so he always, had to buy the sneakers and the clothes for the kids before he thought about getting a car. But once I turned about 18 or 19, he finally bought a brand new car, and it was a Ford Tempo of all things. And he was so proud of that car. And I got a lot of my detailing expertise from my dad. I'm not mechanically inclined at all, but as far as cleaning a car, I can probably clean a car as good as anyone. So the first podcast, I think I'm going to talk about my 1966 Mustang, which I have. And the story of my 66 Mustang is kind of intriguing. I've always loved Mustangs. Again, since I was a little boy, I love cars, but I really, really like the Ford Mustang. And the way this story goes is one day I was just kind of cruising down Route 7. I'm from South Burlington, Vermont, live in St. Albans now. So I'm a Vermonter, and I was cruising down the road in St. Albans in that area, right off of Route 7. And then I looked over to my right, and I saw this old Mustang. Well, it was old, but it sure looked in nice shape. Didn't think much of it. And then a few weeks later, I was in town. And that Mustang came up on the left side of me, and I'm looking at it, and it was an older gentleman. I'm guessing it was with his wife, who was in the passenger seat. And I'm thinking, are you kidding me? Is it possible that these two older people are the original owners of this beautiful cherry red Mustang? Again, kind of gawked at it for quite some time, and then off it went. Drove down Route 7 again a few weeks later, and guess what? There was the Mustang in cherry red, white vinyl top, and it had a for sale sign on it. And I'm thinking, I got to stop. I just have to stop and see this car. So I stopped, talked with the gentleman. His name was Al. He was in his mid-80s, and one of my first questions was, hey, did you, buy this brand new? He started laughing. He says, no. He says, I've probably owned about 1,000 cars. So he buys and sells them all the time. But he had owned this vehicle for, I think about 8 to 10 years. So he had it for quite a while. He told me that his wife absolutely loved the Mustang. So took it out for a drive, and I must say it ran a little rough. But I brought it back. It was kind of spitting some smoke, too. So I mentioned that to him, and he's here he was almost offended. Oh, what are you talking about? Well, there's nothing wrong with this car. It's great. So anyhow, a couple days went by. I thought about it. I said, you know what? I'm going to buy that car. And I think he asked $14,500 for it. So I bought it. And the first thing I did was I took it to my mechanic. Guy had a business called Rick's Towing and Repair in Williston, Vermont. And he's a really good mechanic. He was into race cars, things like that. And his brother, Kevin LePage, was actually on the NASCAR circuit for some time. So this guy's name is Rick LePage. So he took it and he put it on the lift, checked it all out. And then he said, Lee, got a second? So I said, sure. So he says, you want the good news or the bad news? I said, give me the good news first, Rick, on this 66 Mustang. He said, Lee, I got to tell you, this car for 1966 is solid as can be. I mean, it's solid as a rock. Body's amazing. I'm thinking, wow, that's a good thing, right? And I was a little hesitant to ask what the bad news is going to be, but I did. So, Rick, what's the bad news? Bad news is, Lee, that your engine is shot. Oh, great. My engine is shot. So what that meant was pretty much needed a whole rebuild on the engine. Now, I wanted this Mustang to be as original as possible. So I did a lot of research. I can get into that a little bit later on. But what we did was we took the engine apart. I say we because I really wasn't part of it. It was Rick and his crew. And they sent the block to, I think it was someplace in Illinois to have it bored. And he brought it back. And then after that, they put it all together with all new engine repair parts. And by the way, this is a 6-cylinder 200 engine. So it's a V6. Everybody always asks me, is it a 289? No, it's a 6-cylinder. And he got it running just as perfect as can be. And to this day, it runs like a top. Spent a lot of money. I probably have over $25,000 into this vehicle. Again, mentioning the engine was taken care of, but I also replaced the interior. The seats were in great shape. The vinyl top was in great shape. The dash had to be replaced. The steering wheel had to be replaced. It had a little crack in it. So I did spend a lot of money getting this Mustang back to the way it was when it was brand new, because I did have the original window sticker on this vehicle. I think it was around $2,500 brand new for this 66 Mustang. It's actually called a Mustang Sprint. They didn't make a whole lot of them, and the Sprint package just had, some chrome pieces here and there, the cover to the air filter, that kind of thing. So I just tried to make it as close as it could be as to when it was brand new. So I also did some history on the vehicle, and I ended up being the 5th owner on the car, 4 previous owners, which was really kind of nice because it was easy to find out the history on this car. The car originally was from Washington State, and the way the story goes is that this gentleman owned it for like 15 to 20 years. And as a matter of fact, each one of these owners had the car for 15 plus years, which, again, was really, really amazing. Only 4 previous owners. And he ended up selling it to a young lady with her husband. And somehow or other, they ended up in Vermont. And then, as the story goes, she got divorced. He got divorced. They got divorced. And so she ended up with the Mustang. And one day, she got into a car accident. And I guess the fender was kind of damaged on the driver's side in the rear. It was towed to a local garage. The guy's name was, what was it? Anyhow, I guess it doesn't matter. Rotundas. Rotundas is the name. Rotundas Auto Body. And it was towed there, and it was repaired. The car sat there for probably over a year. She never came back to get the car. Now, Mr. Rotunda, the owner of Rotunda's Auto Body, ended up getting a hold of her finally and said, hey, what do you want to do with this Mustang? Just kind of sitting here. She said, well, I want to sell it. You want to buy it? He said, sure, I'll buy it. So sure enough, the guy from Rotunda's Auto Body bought the 66 Mustang, and then he restored it. The body, as I mentioned, is immaculate. It's solid. And this guy at Rotunda's Auto Body is known for his body work. He did an excellent job with that cherry red, candy apple red color, and the white vinyl top was in great shape to begin with, so really didn't have to do much with that. The funny thing is about this, though, is years and years ago prior, I was in radio sales, and I went to visit Rotunda's Auto Body because they were one of my customers. And at the time, Rotunda was working on this Mustang, and I didn't think anything of it. I said, well, if you ever want to sell it, let me know. Ha, ha, ha. Well, he didn't sell it right away. He ended up keeping it for his wife, who absolutely loved the car. And they had children that pretty much grew up with the car. And I just thought it was so ironic how I owned the 66 Mustang that he was working on so many, many years ago. So that's kind of how the story went with the vehicle as far as the engine goes, as far as the restoration goes. The other previous owners of the vehicle, again, the guy that I bought it from, he owned it for 8 to 10 years. And I guess I'm missing one there somewhere, but there were 4 total owners of the vehicle until I got it. And I probably have about $25,000 into it. As I mentioned, I've had the opportunity to sell it a couple times, and one time I actually did sell it. I traded it for a Camaro, of all things, and the car just kind of sat at the dealership, and I would drive by it, and I would see it, and it's like, you know what? I think I want my 66 Mustang back. So it was never titled to another customer. It was never registered to another owner. So I actually bought it back, and the history shows that I never traded it, if you know what I mean. But I doctored the car up quite a bit, try to make it original with the bias ply tires and all the interior that I mentioned previously. So now I own the 66 Mustang. I've had it about 15 years, and it all started when I saw that cherry red 66 Mustang in the heart of St. Albans, Vermont, with an older couple. And I'm thinking it's got to be original. I bet they bought it brand new, but that's not the way the story went. But again, very fortunate to have this vehicle, and it's really stunningly beautiful. And I'm thinking I probably won't sell it, but you never know. I've owned it for 15 plus years, and it is a beautiful, beautiful car. So that's pretty much it. Thanks for listening. Make sure you check out our test drive series on YouTube. Again, the name of the show is Test Drive, and this is our podcast number 1. We'll see you next time on our Test Drive podcast. And remember, let's never forget the men and women serving this great country of ours. Goodbye, everybody.